Welcome to the Misfit One Lifestyles with Elizabeth Colin. She will awaken and connect with your Misfit One. Are you tired of the ups and downs in your life? Are you ready to live a healthy lifestyle once and for all? We are talking about all aspects of your life. Being fit is not just physical, it's also your mind and soul. Learn how to take steps in your life to move towards your goals. Elizabeth's goal is for everyone listening to the sound of her voice to get fit. Let's get focused, let's get intentional, and let's transform. Now here's your host, Elizabeth Colin.
Hey guys, it's your girl, Elizabeth Colin, also known as Misfit One. Hey, we know that we have a life that we live, and it's not always the way we plan it. So today's guest is here to help us when we kind of fall down in grief and see how we can deal with that. And no one better than Miss Irene Weinberg. Sorry. I need to sneeze. That's so funny. I want to keep going. Irene Weinberg is here to talk to us. She's a public speaker, author, and host of the popular podcast, Grief and Rebirth, Finding the Joy in Life. How are you?
I am great. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Elizabeth. Truly.
Man, the pleasure is all mine. I am so excited about this. And guys, I want you to go ahead, get your pen and paper, because Miss Irene is going to be dropping some knowledge for you today. And it's something that we could really take in. And I just want to say before we get started, I just want to tell you, I know Miss Irene looks like she's 30, but she's 77. So listen to these words of wisdom, right? And can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Oh, yeah. And talk about, Elizabeth, talk about how life serves us some things that we are not expecting. God bless you, darling. God bless you. So I want to share with everyone that I was married to the love of my life. I've been married twice. And my second husband, I was married to the love of my life for going on 18 years. And we did not believe in anything spiritual. We thought it was hooey. I had a sister-in-law who was very spiritual. We were hardly talking to her. We thought she was a little crazy, and all that jazz. And one day I got the surprise, the wake-up call of my life. I was standing at my kitchen sink, and my husband was watching a Jets game on TV in our family room. And I suddenly got a message that wasn't my thought. And it came into my head, and it said, Saul has to go. Many lessons will be learned from his death.
Wait, Miss Irene. Let's just break this down so everybody hear what I hear. Because what I'm hearing is you saying that you were not religious at all.
I was not at all.
And you thought it was hooey.
It was hooey.
And we know a lot of people who think religious is hooey, and that's why it's so great to have you. And you heard a voice, a thought that just popped in your mind.
It pops in my mind. It's not my thought. Who's thinking washing your dishes that your husband has to go? Many lessons will be learned by his death. And I want to tell everybody that my husband was a really kind, good man. He was a real estate developer, and people just loved him. But I mean, me too. Who was looking at him dying one day? So of course I bring him a glass of water. I kiss the top of his head, and I put it completely out of my mind. But you never forget something like that. And 2 months later, we were skiers. We were coming home from our ski house in the Catskills. We had been on the New York State Thruway for about an hour and a half, and I suddenly felt my car go into a huge swerve, and I looked over, and Saul was sound asleep at the wheel. We were going 72 miles an hour, Elizabeth, and I mean, I looked over at him, and I said, Saul, and he woke up, and he went to pull the car out of the swerve, but instead of righting itself, my car started to flip up into the air for the first of 4 flips. I know, it's amazing. And
Oh my
we landed 4 times really hard on the right side. I mean, I've had 4 surgeries on account of it, but I got to tell you that we hit once, we picked up again. And when we picked up for the second time, Elizabeth, I got a second message. And the message said, he's not going to make it. You are.
no.
Honest to God. And then as I get that message, I suddenly left my body. Everything I could feel myself leave my body, and things were very black around me. And like as if you were looking at a clock at 10 of, and then at 10 after in the flip, I returned to my body. And I've been told that I kind of accompanied my husband to the other side, and I was given a choice whether I would stay there or come back, and I chose to come back because my son was 21. That's another part of the story. But I flipped again. I flipped a third time, and then on the fourth flip, we landed upside down in a ravine, held up traffic on the thruway for 2.5 hours. I was upside down in my seatbelt, and I turn and I look at my husband. I go, Saul, are you okay? And what I was told is true. His entire beautiful persona has left his body, and I am next to the shell of my husband. And I go, oh my God, there is something up with this. I get in that moment that there is more, that he is with me. And now the amazing thing is, I see a helicopter land in front of me, and these EMTs jump out of the helicopter and they go to right my car. It gets turned right side up on the road, and one of them puts his hands through the shattered window of my car and starts pulling me out of through the window, and a real male voice trumpeted into my head and said, be loving and kind to everyone, as they laid me on the side of the road.
Pause. Pause. Because that is divine. Divine. I mean, like, it was so much. Let's just unpack that right there. You was with the love of your life.
Right. Right.
And you witnessed him.
Right. Right. I was, yes. Yes.
And when that happened, you heard a real voice.
Right.
That said, be kind.
Be loving and kind to everyone.
What did you take that as?
Well, I'll tell you, it changed my life, because instead of screaming for myself, I felt like I had been given a directive from heaven. I knew that there was more in my life, and I became very grateful, so much so, and changed so much that instead of screaming for myself, I started validating everyone around me. God bless you. It's the weekend before Christmas. Thank you for helping me. They put me in the helicopter. They take me to an emergency trauma center. And I needed 19 stitches in the bottom of a foot. And that was just the first surgery. And the surgeon comes over to me and he says to me, I need to tell you that your husband is gone. And I said, Doc, I know, and I'm the luckiest woman in the world that I was blessed to have this man for the time I did. I mean, it changed me so much that the assistant to the doctor called me the surgeon called me 3 months later. She said, Irene, I got to tell you, you changed lives in that emergency room. No one, we've seen so much on that throughway, and no one has ever reacted the way you did, with love and kindness towards everyone, and not being obsessed about yourself and what had happened to you. And I said to her, Trish, I had an amazing spiritual awakening, and it has changed my whole belief system and everything. So I just want you to know you changed lives. So now what? I go home 3 days later, Elizabeth, and I'm in grieving hell. And I have all the drama and all the family and all the people around me and all the stuff going on. But I know something is up. And about 6 weeks after the accident, I get a call from my dry cleaner, because you can tell I'm friendly and I talk to everybody. And my dry cleaner calls me and he says to me, Irene, I want you to know that 8 years ago, my wife and I lost our oldest son to a drug incident, and we were, no one could help us. We went to counselors and everybody, and then we found out that the soul goes on to the other side. And there's a guy we're going to be talking to. We're going to what's called a gallery, where people get together with a medium to hopefully hear from their deceased loved ones. Did I know that, and this, like, prior to the accident, or would I have believed in this? No.
Right. Okay. This is so mind blowing. Like, first of all, you went from not believing in anything. No, it was all hoo-hoo. It was
Right.
not true. You lost your husband, as you heard from above already, a message.
Right.
You survived the accident. Now you was grateful and generous when you heard the message. You wasn't, crazy.
It was amazing.
And now you're hitting grief. And let's pause on that a lot, because grief it's so different for each person.
That's true.
Each person, hits it. Some people can have grief and it goes like, oh, I'm okay. They're in the land of denial, and then they shut off, or they're so sad they can't move on. And I'm hearing what you're saying is that you were able to have a friend to introduce you to somebody that could talk to Saul. What can you describe what your grief was like?
Yeah,
before?
because I have to say, well, one of the things I tell people all the time that I learned in grieving is that you can be devastated on the floor and you can still have joy. And one of the one is not exclusive of the other, right?
Right.
So I have been on the floor, kicking, screaming, missing my husband, going like nuts with that, but also knowing at the same time that something was up and I was starting to open to the spiritual world. And he was coming through every way he could, through somebody. He described his toes, the way he kissed me, the first time he kissed me. He described the first meal I ever made him, the outfit he was wearing the night he died. Talk about proof of survival. And the other thing I took from the message, be loving and kind to everyone, was that includes me. And all of a sudden, I became, in my grief, aware that I needed to take really good care of me. And it wasn't a selfish, narcissistic thing. How could I be there for my son? My husband was buried on his 21st birthday. How could I be there for my son and other people in my world if I had chosen to remain, if I didn't also love myself and take care of myself? So right? So the first thing I did was, in my grief, I started working with a life transition coach, Elizabeth, and now I open up to spirituality. So I start working with an energy healer. I start, I'm working out. I'm taking care of my physical body. I'm starting to do things, even though I can go, I cry and I'm upset and the waves of grief are coming. I am conscious. All of a sudden, I'm conscious that there's more to life, and I need to also take care of me.
Did you guys get that? She just gave you 3 nuggets right there. 3 things that you could do if you've been feeling in this grief. If that you feeling that on the floor crying, you could get a life transition coach. Transition coach, and you can do
energy healing.
Energy healing, and take care of yourself. Right.
And all of that was part of taking care of myself.
Taking care of yourself. And so let's talk about when you went to the gallery and got the reading.
It was amazing. First of all, the person doing it is now extremely famous. He was just starting out. It was John Edward, who's been on TV and everything. And he sees me when I walk in with my dry cleaner. And I want to tell you, the most unbelievable part of it is, remember, I was still just learning about this world. I was just opening up to it. He said to me, I don't even want to know your name. Go upstairs where other people are. And I go up into a room with 35 people. He was not famous at all yet. 35 people, and half of them were there hoping to hear from their deceased loved ones, and the other half were writing notes because it was before voice recorders. We're writing notes, and it was like Saul waited for me to get the gist of what was going on and hear these other amazing messages coming through to people. And all of a sudden, John Edwards said, I'm getting a message from a guy about Dr. Pepper. Does someone understand Dr. Pepper? And I elbowed my dry cleaner. I said, Joe, start writing. Oh my God, it's Saul. 15 years before he met me, my husband's brother, who was an advertising executive on Madison Avenue, put Saul's name in a Dr. Pepper commercial. And he said, Dr. Pepper is coming east from California. Let's hear from the man on the street, Saul Weinberg, not John Doe, not Joe Smith. And let's see what he has to say about it. And Saul used to laugh about it. How in the world could John Edward possibly know that? And now Saul's telling me, he's telling me he died in a different state than where you live. He gives each the names of each of the kids for 40 minutes, so much so that John Edwards said, how long is this guy on the other side? Because he is an old soul, the way he's so articulate. And I want to show you something that's going to blow everybody's mind. Because remember, I was a skeptic. The thing that really clinched it for me was my car, Saul's car, because mine was totaled, was parked 5 counts away from that gallery. I had gotten in my dry cleaner's car, right? John Edwards said, Saul says you're driving his favorite car with Saul Z on the license plate. He was a developer in Hoboken, New Jersey, and the kids he sold condos to loved him, and they called him Uncle Saul Z. And look at this. Here's the license plate.
She is showing up her license plate that says Saul Z. How that is speechless. Like, I mean, I don't even know how I would handle that. That is okay. So for those of you who do not believe in mediums, we're not saying you should or should not, but I'm saying Irene is saying, shall I say, it's true.
It's true. I will tell everybody, like every profession, there are charlatans, like everything in the world. Well, that's why in my podcast, I interview a lot of mediums so people can hear what they have to say and they can choose who resonates with them. But it saved my life, because when I knew that the love of my life, I was going to see him again after I completed what I needed to do in this lifetime, it changed. Even though I'm still grieving physically and in every way, my whole being is calling out for him. On this other level, I'm getting proof that he's around. I'm getting proof of survival.
Oh man. So this is so good, because I don't know how long ago was this? How long ago did your
About 25 years ago. So that's why I can talk about it so easily now. Okay. And it's led to so many other things, but you know, yeah.
And what's crazy is, before you had this spiritual awakening, what was your life before? What was your life like before this? Because you are really giving me all the joys right now. So how was your life before you had this spiritual awakening?
So I gotta tell you, and this is why that be loving and kind to everyone. And when I started working with these healers, really changed my life. I had a very dysfunctional childhood. My family abandoned me for 23 years. I had a very, terrible first marriage based on that I hadn't healed and I didn't know the difference. And I married someone like my father. And, and then I married Saul. We were both married the first time to people who had mental challenges. So our kids were a mess. I ended up getting complete custody with him of his 2 teenage kids. Wow. And I tell people, if that didn't kill me, nothing will. And it was hard. It was hard. You talk about another woman's kids, and she's got issues, and she comes to live with you. Court ordered that you are to the highest good of these kids, and they walk in, and if you think they're full of love and kisses for you, you're replacing their mother in some way. I don't think so. It
Yes,
was
yes.
hard.
Oh
And
my
it was
God.
hard. And so once this thing kicked off and I started doing all this healing, I was actually not only able to deal with my grief, but, I learned that if your grief should be, I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, even if it's an 8, but it goes into a 15 or 20 zone, you got issues from your childhood that need to be healed. They are fueling that grief and making it even worse. So right?
Yeah, and I want you to tell people that, because a lot of people suffer from that. A lot of people keep the cycle they just continue the cycle over and over again. Can you give us like 2 to 3 tips on how to help heal that? Like, what can we do? What steps can we take to move away from the cycle?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is, in therapy, I started to learn about my family history and the legacy that they had carried from their dysfunction to me. And then I was learning I did not have to be that way. I could change the story for me. So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned was from going to the spiritual energy healer. Oh my goodness, we live other lives. And I had carried karma and different things from things that had happened to me in other lifetimes. So I cleaned that up. And the third thing I learned was that I was starting to, because I was taking care of myself, and people were starting to say to me, you're a role model for how to handle this. And I was starting to understand that the healthier I got, the better it was going to be for me and for people around me. And I know you've experienced that from the transition and changes you've gone through, Elizabeth. I want to
Yes.
tell everybody an amazing thing. When they pulled me out of that car and I got that message, I also thought in my head, I will get through this somehow, because I have to show my son that you can get hit by a grenade in life and still keep going. And so I went to counseling, I did all this stuff, and my husband said to me 4 years after the accident, Mom, there's been nothing worse than seeing you in total despair, and nothing better than seeing you be able to have joy again. And I realized that what I was doing was role modeling for him, because stuff is going to happen in his life too. So,
Yes.
the other thing I learned is, what are you role modeling? How are you handling your grief? Are you like in your swamp and that's your story and you're sticking to it for the rest of your life?
Yes.
Or are you doing what you need to do to work with professionals or whoever to find out what's going on, not because it takes away the grief, but it kind of transforms it so that it gives you an opening to move forward in your life and not stay stuck in your story.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Right?
Because it's so hard. It's a hard thing that people sometimes just swim in the ocean of despair and victimhood. It's all about, what happened to me. It's like, yes, but move on. Do you want to stay there? And what's so important that I must get out, because I always ask everyone, what is your wellness? What is your self-care? How do you take care of yourself? Because you are a beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful, beautiful woman at the age of 77. That's
Thank you.
gold right there.
So people ask me all the time, what do you do? And I go, listen, you're looking at high maintenance, because in this message, be loving and kind to me too. I do yoga twice a week. I do weight training. I am working with a naturopath. I have a good, healthy diet. I do Zumba. I dance. I keep it moving. And then, like, at my age now, I noticed like I was starting to get like sore in my back and all. I'm going for acupuncture. I am open to taking good care of me. And also, because this led me to writing a book and doing this podcast. And now I have a second book coming out, all this amazing stuff. It's also given me self-esteem, and I'm working with people and able to be on a podcast like this, Elizabeth, and help people with my story. So how do you not feel young with that? How do you not feel vibrant and alive with all that?
Oh my gosh, you got me just jumping over here. I'm like, yeah, to all of that. I'm loving that high maintenance. Me too. Me too. I love that. And everybody who's listening should be too, because that is important. Now, let me ask you this. How can you mentioned a book. Can you talk a little bit about your book and where can we?
I'm going to really briefly tell everyone, my first book is They Serve Bagels in Heaven. And I worked with someone who channeled my husband. I was asking him questions. What happened? How did you cross over? What happens on the other side? What do they do about evil? All these questions. And it's a love story. And it's got lots of 5-star reviews and all that. My second book, because so many people have told me what an inspiration I am to them. My second book is called, you're going to love this, Elizabeth, Good to the Last Drop. About people, when you have your first chapter in life, we're kids, we're learning, we're growing, we're being told what to think, how to do, Our second chapters, we're establishing our careers, our relationships, all of that. Now you retire. What are you going to do with yourself? I know people who think it's time to retire, get sick and die. What about thinking of your last chapter as, I'm going to take care of myself, stay good to the last drop. And I am going to be able to leave a legacy. And what's my legacy? Being some old thing that fell apart and had a lousy, awful attitude and cranky, and no one wanted to know me? Or am I going to leave a legacy where I am focused, I'm making a difference, good to the last drop? And I have 22 people who contributed their stories about the awful things that have happened to them in their lives. I mean, losing children, this sickness, and how they took that potpourri and they turned it. And now in the last chapter, the third chapter, they're being good to the last drop.
Oh my gosh, I gotta get it. Where can we get your books? Because I got questions about the crossover, what he see. I got questions, what they do with the evil. I mean, we don't have enough time to get into all the questions that I have.
Well, that'll be another one, Elizabeth.
We gotta have a part
another
two.
one.
Absolutely.
A follow-up. But you can get, Amazon has They Serve Bagels in Heaven. And if everybody gets on my website, Irene Weinberg, WEINBERG.com, you will see in about a month, the new book is coming out, Good to the Last Drop. And you will also be able to see it on Amazon when it comes out. And, and you'll find out all about me, my podcast, if you want to listen to what a medium's speaking about and all that, a healer.
Tell me your podcast again, please.
My podcast is Grief and Rebirth. And I have to say, I'm really thrilled and honored the fact that it's in the top 2% of podcasts, 3 million podcasts. I am with everyone's loving what these interviews are about, because they're enlightening people about that there is more. And you don't hear just from me, you're hearing it from all these different people who are working with this.
I am loving all of this. This is it. You have just described my whole platform to a T. To live fit, focus plus intentional equals transformation. And you bam, you are the perfect example of that.
Thank you.
I thank you so much. Before we wrap it up, is it anything you want to leave the people with?
Yeah. There are. Aside from being loving and kind to everyone, that being loving and kind means if someone is toxic and negative to you, being loving and kind to yourself means you can detach from them. You can send them love, detach, but you don't have to live with that negative energy in your life. That's the first one. And the second one was, I was with a medium once and we walked into a gallery and there was a girl weeping in the front row. Turns out her father came through and he said that They had had a horrible fight the night before he unexpectedly died, and they called each other terrible names. And he said, I got a life review when I crossed over, and I got to feel everything that you felt when I said those things to you. And I am so sorry, and I love you. And the difference in that young girl, when she was in the front of that row, waiting, hoping, praying for a reading from her father, and when she walked out. So my other thing I want to tell everyone, what you say, I found out, follows you. That emotional imprint follows you to the other side. And so be careful. And I am very aware now of how I speak to people, how I treat people, because I know it has overarching ramifications. And I'm going to meet it again one day when I cross over.
Ooh, y'all better watch out. Sometimes words be bam, man. If that is not the best way to end the show and let you sit and think about it for a minute. Ooh, thank you so much, Miss Irene. Thank you so much for coming on, because this is, wow, powerful. Powerful. Okay, guys, I want y'all to think on this all week. I'll talk to you next week, you guys. Until then, live fit. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Misfit One Lifestyles. Listen, when you are fed up and sick and tired of living this stifled, overwhelmed, and overstressed life, and you're ready to live the fullest, richest, and healthiest life by gaining more confidence, more energy, and more clarity, living in your best self, you know what to do, right? Go ahead, go to my website, misfit1.com. Sign up for our online courses, Creating a Healthy Habit, so that you too can live fit, focus, move with intention, and transform your life.